Today we're going to talk about successes and failures here on our half-acre homestead. I'm Jackie. This is the Little Half Acre. I'm going to reserve judgment on this area, and I'll tell you why. I'm really doing a crazy experiment here. First of all, a word about my composter, my tumbling composter. I do like this. We bought this last year. There's not enough sun anywhere on this property for me to have compost bins, to have 3 in a row, turn them the traditional way you do compost bins. So I did buy this, and I rely on this, my worm castings for sure, and then expended chicken and duck bedding. I also use water from the duck pond because you can put that straight on your garden beds. Great source of nitrogen. This is the experiment though. The 2 blueberry bushes in the box, that's separate, in the boxes I should say. That's separate, and those have produced beautifully for years now. The reason this is an experiment is because when we moved here, this was all grass. But I remember from looking at this property online for at least a year before, everything here was, I'm not sure what to call it. It was not paved, it was not gravel, it was a combination of like a patio, but with rough stone and rough cement. I can't describe it. Anyway, long story short, I covered this with probably 8 inches of soil and compost, and I've tried my slicing tomatoes here. So far, we're looking okay. Again, got to keep the chickens from eating the tomatoes. I've put Marconi peppers here, and I'm getting some. What I'm not sure of is how that product underneath this 8 inches of soil will affect growing things. I also don't know how it will affect us eating the things that I'm growing. So probably next year, when I'm making a few more changes to what I'm growing, this is going to be more like shallow-rooted things, like strawberries, anything that does not go far down, because I don't want to eat whatever might be in the concrete or whatever that mixture was. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that. Okay, this is definitely a success. When we first moved here, I wanted to experiment with a hugel mound and see what that was all about. So I actually trenched out about a foot deep with a mattock because it was all rock. Sometimes large rocks like this one, which was just under the soil when we were laying these pavers. I laid down some of the tree branches, maybe 4-inch in diameter, 5-inch in diameter, from all the 20-some trees that we cut down. Then I added smaller branches, and then I added brushy material. Covered that with a couple of inches of soil, and then let it cook. The first several years that I grew in this, of course, because the logs and the branches were breaking down, things did okay, but not great. Last year I saw a big improvement. I had some tomatoes in here on the back edge. Can't remember what I planted on the front edge, but the tomatoes were fabulous, and they're a fairly deep-rooted vegetable. This year is butternut squash. There are actually 2 blueberry bushes on the end which have been overrun, but they will survive. And so far this year, these are looking great. There are almost 20 butternut squash between these 2 plants. I cut the smaller ones off, cut the vines off so that the vines could concentrate on producing and maturing the squash rather than producing vines. Now just behind the hugel mound here is a little terrace that we built because I needed a fairly deep bed for asparagus. This is our permanent asparagus bed. I plant lettuces and small crops in between in early spring. This is year 6 on this bed. It's not a mature bed yet. We really need a good 10 years, but I am getting a fair amount of asparagus every spring. There are 2 kinds in there. There's the purple and the regular Mary Washington. If you're growing asparagus, just a hint in case you're new to it, do not cut your asparagus vines down. I know it's messy and it doesn't look very good, but let them go to berry, which is your seed, and let the vines totally die back before you cut them down, because the plant, the roots, need the vines to give them that feed and that strength. All right, we'll swing over this way. We just redid this bed. For the first 7 years of growing here, we were using 1-bys, just pine. And for the price, I thought we did pretty well in getting 7 years of growing out of all the raised beds that you've seen, and this one as well. But this year, the 1-bys were horrible, so we've replaced them with 2-bys. I figure we'll get another 7 years. After that, we'll see what happens. This is just squash and zucchini right now, some spaghetti squash as well. Spaghetti squash. I always want to call it vegetable squash. Anyway, got some Egyptian walking onions that I just put in here, and just a few cloves of garlic in the front, which have not begun to come up. This will be beets and spinach for the fall. And the biggest problem here is stability when you're walking. You can see it's kind of narrow in front. Rocks protrude everywhere, so I have to be very careful when I'm This is the slope. This starts the slope of the property. So from here up to the back is a little dangerous, and I have to be very careful. You can see that we've been working on putting more terracing in, and that's just so I can have a stable platform when I'm walking. I've already had one broken wrist. I don't need another one. This is a fail because this was all nice soil, and look at the crabgrass. Oh my. I can't keep up with the weeding here. There need to be 3 of me. So this time of year, it's mid-July. Everything really starts looking overblown, overgrown, very weedy, because it's just more than I can keep up with. But this will be a full garden bed eventually when I get the weeds out. All right, I think we can stay right here, and I will talk about another failure. And this is an epic failure. That is a peach gild, again, using permaculture principles. That is a crossfire peach. That is not what I wanted. I will not badmouth the company, but I will say that from now on, if I buy any fruit trees or berries, berry bushes, I will only buy from Stark Brothers. I've had great success with their product. I've not had success with a couple of other companies. Long story short, when I bought this crossfire peach 4 or 5 years ago, it came with the union between the rootstock and the tree. There was actually a root that protruded out of the union. I hadn't taken the advanced gardening course here in North Carolina yet, so I did not know that I just needed to cut that off. I was afraid that would damage the tree, so I planted it. I kept the graft, the union, above the soil level, but apparently that one root was the rootstock, which is a crossfire peach. As far as I know, it's the only peach that has red leaves. The fruit's not really edible. So I have a peach tree that can't really eat. Maybe I can give the small, naughty peaches that come every other year to the chickens or something, because they're not good. Another failure because it's another tree that I did not prune this year. So it's going everywhere. This is the peach gild. The understory, again, is a aronia berry, a blueberry with asparagus on one end. There are strawberries in there. There are coral bells or heucheras. Trying to think what else. There's a peony. But it is all so covered with weeds that it's pretty much just one ugly tree that doesn't produce anything and a lot of weeds. So probably the worst failure on the property this year. But there's always next year.